Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another edition of the Influence Global podcast. And I'm delighted to be welcoming my good friend, Zach Stahlsmith, who is the CEO and founder of Apex Drop. I was privileged enough to join him on a recent conference and super impressed by his knowledge and insight around the gifting, and particularly when it comes to micro influencers. So a warm welcome, Zach, to today.
Thanks for having me. Yes.
Yeah. Good. So before we get into the weeds and looking a little bit about sort of gifting campaigns for influencers, perhaps you'd be good enough to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before you got on to, because you've been doing this a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, who am I? I'm Zach Stahlsmith. I'm a marketeer. I have over 2 decades of marketing experience. An entrepreneur, a public speaker, an author. I'm also the founder of an influencer marketing firm called Apex Drop. And we've helped over 500 companies make hundreds of millions of dollars using micro influencers. Yeah, so that's a little bit of my background. I started the company in 2015, bootstrapped. Started it in the basement of my house, essentially working all by myself. And now it's grown to 40 employees all over the US. And yeah, we're just riding this crazy wave of social media.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, that's incredible. And so many of these agencies start out like that, don't they? Now, sort of bootstrapped. What I've been fascinating about, having worked in this space for, actually a lot less time than you have, is how it has rapidly grown in just the short time that I've been involved in it, let alone since you've been involved. So even a bigger increase. What would be, before we get into the sort of big discussion, what's been the biggest difference that you've seen since you started out?
So since the beginning, the biggest difference in the industry or with my company? Which
Yeah,
specifically?
the biggest difference in the industry. What's the big thing that you've noticed?
The shift in the way we consume media. It's now completely on our phones. Like,
Yeah,
if
right.
you're in traditional, you're dead. Like, COVID killed it.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. So let's look at sort of people advertising, or and actually although we are going to talk about influencers, of course, one of the things that I've loved about your platform is you're dealing with regular people that just have great audiences as well, that don't even know they're influential. So let's look at why should brands even consider gifting as part of their marketing strategy?
Yeah, this is a marketing method old as, well, not old as time, but it's pretty darn old. So if we want to first mention what is gifting. So like, influencer marketing has different tiers. Some people do what we call product gifting or sampling, where they'll send a product to a micro influencer or a macro influencer, somebody who's maybe even a celebrity. And that's there's lots of different ways to do gifting. So just to be clear, the one that I typically do at my agency, we call sampling, which is where we send a product with no expectation of a post. We send it with no expectation of an outcome. And we do this at an insanely big scale. So we're talking thousands and thousands of influencers, people that have an audience, micro audience, which is typically 10,000 followers, not 100,000 or a million followers. So gifting specifically is a form of, usually, where a brand will send a product with an expectation of something back. Just to, the difference there is that if you want a post and you're telling somebody, here's a gift card, here's a gift, you're essentially asking for an endorsement. And so endorsement gifting is different than sampling gifting. And we do both at Apex Drop, my agency, but we focus on the sampling gifting side with micro influencers. Most of our clients come to us that with experience in gifting. They have a team that will typically be sending out products. They'll find people on Instagram and TikTok and do a message like, hey, we'd like to send you a free product. Would you like to receive it? Sometimes there's an expectation where they'll say, hey, we'd like this kind of post. Here's what we'd like to see. And other times they just send the product. So think of it like, I've mentioned this analogy. It's like a pizza shop that's new in town. They're trying to get the word out. What do? They send out coupons for free pizzas all over town. Everybody comes out and tries it once. The people that love it stick to it. They become loyal customers. And it's an essentially really great way to build an audience. And it's considered a loss leader. So that means that you're typically going to invest before you see any kind of return. No one would say that those coupons are going to make you instant money, but they are going to make you an instant community and network of customers, which is what Apex really focuses on.
Yeah. And so, and how have you seen gifting changing over the time that you've been doing it? Has it got more elaborate? Is it as much about the unboxing video, as we often call it? Are you seeing multiple gifts in one package? How important is it to have personalization, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say it's become more elaborate. Actually, in some ways, it's become less elaborate. It's becoming such a normal part of business that it's kind of mundane. But what I guess it started with sending micro celebrities elaborate gifts, hoping that they would talk about it. Now it's moved into, there are kitting systems and distributors that help people with kitting. So it's become a whole industry where if you want to have an unboxing experience, you're probably going to hire a fulfillment center or a distribution network that will allow you to create an incredible experience. That does usually include multiple things in a box. It does include a really beautiful package. You want to really focus on that experience because video is now part of the unboxing experience. So yeah, it's changed a lot. It's become more about the event of the opening of that than it was in the past.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like it's a double bubble. It's that whole experience that effectively what you've got from a content creator is bringing the product to life through the eyes of somebody else. And I think from a brand point of view, that's traditionally done this is what we do, this is how we do it. Now you've got all of these individuals telling their story and also showing emotion. And emotion is a big part of that that gifting experience, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, the consumer's in control now, and we all, if as marketers, it's hard to let go of that control. But the truth is that the reviews are in front of all of our audiences, and if you're on Amazon, any reviewer now has access to all of your customers that are on Amazon. So we've shifted some of that control over to the consumer in our marketing efforts. And this gift is us basically investing in our customers and in our best customers, almost buying our best customers in a way.
Yeah.
And why, when you buy your best customer, you're essentially saying, I believe in my product so greatly that it'll be shared, that I'm willing to invest in a loss leader. Like I'm willing to send it and hope. And that's not usually marketers' best strategy. But if you have a great product, you don't really need to hope. It will be shared.
And is there a limit? I mean, obviously, when somebody, there's a lot of influencer campaigns that are paid, and I know a lot of the ones that you run and are not paid for collaborations. But I guess that there comes a point when it could be a more expensive gift, and we're not talking about something that's a few dollars, but maybe into even $50 to $100. That suddenly, by the time you add packaging and posting, that can add quite a lot more to it. That's quite a lot to do speculatively, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, cost of goods has to be factored into the investment. So if you have a product with really tight margins, probably not the best thing to do sampling. If you have, well, at least at scale, you still want to do some sampling, but probably just focus on building your customer base and using that customer base. But if you don't have a customer base that's pre-built that you want, so like, let's say you have a new product launch, or you have something that you really do want to scale into a new market, you can't do better than force feeding a customer base. So, I mean, if you can afford it, marketing is expensive. If you look at Google AdWords, it's, how many dollars per click now in most cases. Right. This is insanity. Google is just stealing all of our money at this point. The way to get away from the beast that is Google is to build your own content and your own customer base. The way to get away from Amazon and their ownership of everything is to build your own customer base. So I'll say this again. This is just getting away from those juggernauts that are going to steal 20 or 30% of your profits for the rest of time. So if you want to get away, if you want to unhinge and unhinge, you have to build your own content. And the way we do that here at Apex is we think about this in the thousands instead of in the dozens. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to send some gifts out, I'm going to send a few products out, that's great. Any one person can manage a handful of gifts. It gets extremely difficult when you're sending out thousands of gifts and you're trying to manage this. So imagine a pizza shop, like the analogy I used earlier, and they're starting to slip 20 bills in with the pizza because they really want to get better reviews faster. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. You don't need to pay people to like your pizza, do you? So like when we think of paying influencers, it's really about paying them for a job. Now, if you're hiring an artist to do a job, you pay them for the job. So if you think of it as I'm hiring an artist to do a job. Now, if the job is to fake that you like a product, let's just call a spade a spade. That is endorsement. That is the definition of paying a celebrity for an endorsement. That is not influencer marketing. That's not building a customer base. That's just, I mean, it is what it is. It works sometimes. So I'm not going to say it's useless. But what I would say is that if you're trying to build a brand over the long game, you really need to build a customer base that's strong and not fake it till you make it. So, you know, if your focus is the short term, yeah, sure, go get one person to talk about you with promo codes. That works sometimes. It's hit or miss. But if you want to build a brand that's got a solid foundation, or a product, a new product that you're trying to launch with a solid foundation, pay to play is kind of the game right now. Nike's, Adidas, you know, Apple, these companies don't need to pay to play. They literally have the biggest customer bases that are loyal. Those loyal customer bases are already creating content on the daily. So, and they have a brand name that's known. So they're playing a different game than you and I. And, you know, I've helped massive corporations like Procter & Gamble, but I've also helped companies that are much smaller grow to those kind of levels. And I can say it's a lot more fun to help the underdog. And, you know, if the underdog wants to fight, they're going to have to pay to play.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. And you were talking about scale there, which almost leads into my next question, really, which was, you know, when it comes to gifting, I know that many brands have tried to do this themselves. So they've reached out on Instagram and they think, actually, we'll just go and do this. But then come up against a cropper because they realize there's lots of communications between them and the influencer. Have they found the right person? They don't know enough about them. So I guess, you know, what benefits does an agency or a platform have with, particularly when it comes to gifting and influencers at scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to think of influencers as the new internship. So like influencership, you know, you can call it an influencership. Artists generally are going through a different path to greatness than they have in the past. They used to be, everybody wanted to be famous back in the day, but we just went about it a little differently. We'd be like, go to school, get good grades, go to college, go to a good college, and then get a good internship. And then hope for greatness, like that your greatness is noticed and that you be found. Usually you do some networking. Now it's, you know, you don't go to college, get really good at one skill, put it up on social media and just hope that everybody sees you and you're the next Justin Bieber. So I think of this as just a natural progression to the digital. Apex Drop fills a gap for this internship space. So the new internship space is these influencers, these people that have skills are looking for ways to express those skills and network. And the way they need some skin in the game. So typically with an internship in the past, some of them were paid, some of them were unpaid. And unpaid internships are not bad as long as it's a good opportunity and a good opportunity to connect. So a paid internship at McDonald's is not as good as an unpaid internship at Apple. Everybody would agree.
Quite, of course.
So there's nothing wrong with not paying people as long as the outcome is good for both sides.
Yeah.
So I just see us as we understand the space of unpaid influencership so well. And we've developed this network of 16,000 people that have the understanding that this is about networking and growth for them. It's not about products and sales. And so like brands just have a really hard time of removing themselves from, I need to make money today. Marketers are now becoming salespeople, sales oriented. And that's dangerous because at the end of the day, we want our marketers to tell the brand story through the customer story, right? Yeah. We want the brand to really, really just promote their best customers. Like that's the best way to promote your brand. So I guess what I'm getting at is if you're going to deal with this in-house, you're gonna have a couple big problems. The first one is you're super biased. Like you 100% want to make money. So like when you reach out to an influencer and you say, excuse me, would you like a product? Like they know what you're doing. You can't hide it. You know for a fact you're trying to make money. They know you're trying to make money. So the first words out of their mouth is, how much will you pay me? Like, yeah, of course they're going to do that. This is a business transaction. Duh. Well, when Apex taps an influencer on the shoulder, we say, hey, we'd like to help you grow. So we start with, how can we help you make more content? How can we get you some connections?
Love that.
So it's like a networking opportunity. It's just a different conversation. And we set up an agreement, which is that you're going to be professional if you ever do interact with these with these brands that we work with. And you're going to be involved, but you don't have to post. If you don't like a product, you actually say you won't post if you don't like a product. That's huge. Like an influencer that's being told, do not post if you don't like it, is different than a brand saying, here's the product, and if you don't like it, go screw yourself, because you have to like it, because I'm paying you, or I'm whatever it is. So, and there's so much pressure that comes from those moments with the micro influencers. They're so excited. They're like, brands reaching out. This is my opportunity to shine. I'm going to be famous. I mean, we all know fame can come from little interaction, but most of the time it's volume of networking opportunities. And so our job is to help the influencers realize that this is about creating a career, not always just about becoming famous. And to create a career, you should focus on the networking side of the business. So we're just like a stepping stone between college and a job. And, you call it the internship or the unpaid internship.
Yeah.
If you want to scale it, your inbox is going to be absolutely bombarded with, how much people want to make. It's going to be all over. 10,000 follower person who wants $1,000. And then there's another one who wants $5 or nothing. And then there's another one who wants 10,000. Nobody knows what they're worth. Like literally they don't. Some of them have agents, like it's a fake agent. Some of them are going to be like, I only work with brands that pay me. And like, you're going to have to then break down that wall. It's like, guys, you got better stuff to do. Exactly. Like literally you got better stuff to do. Imagine if somebody said, you're a marketer, your job is to make a college that has an unpaid internship at the end of it, and you need to place them in the right place. Like, that's a weird job for a marketer to have. That's a really good job for an agency to have. My job is to create the unpaid internship opportunity, to find thousands of people that are a good fit and then place them. Let me do that for you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, just to give the listeners a bit of an idea, and I know you may say, oh, well, there's all sorts of variables, but what could somebody do that maybe is a growing startup brand that wants to invest in influencer marketing? What sort of budget do you think they need to allow to work with the company like you or whatever, or an agency on influencer marketing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're here's the thing. We're looking for people that have that already have a multi-touch attribution model at Apex. So that means that they're investing in different parts of their funnel.
Right.
Startups just, they're not there. They're at the bottom of the funnel all day long. They have no choice. That's survival at that point. So if you're in survival mode, you're at the bottom of the funnel trying to get sales today, probably not good for Apex Drop.
No.
But if you're doing multi-touch, that means you're going through the whole funnel and you're saying, I'm investing in branding and awareness and content. I'm investing in micro and macros and small and nanos, and you've got different touch points that you're investing in. And also, if you have a mature budget, if you know what you're spending in marketing, it doesn't have to be significant, but you at least need to know what you're investing. If you don't know how much you're putting in your marketing, you're probably not a fit. So if you don't know how much you're spending, you're like, I ask people, so how much is your digital versus your traditional? And they're like, I don't even know. So like, okay, so you don't really know your marketing budget. If you don't know, most smaller companies have to invest up to 50% of their revenue back in their marketing efforts. So if you don't know that, maybe take a step back from hiring an agency, but it's expensive. It's not cheap. There's nothing cheap about investing in your company. You might have the greatest product on earth, but without marketing, you won't be able to grow as quickly. You might be able to grow. So, down to the, like, what's the smallest marketing budget? Most of the companies I work with, the smallest ones are around 1%, which is, you have to be an enterprise to even be at that level.
Yeah.
So somewhere between 10, 15% of your revenue should be invested on average with our companies we work with. And half of that should be put into influencers. And, so that could be like 5% of your revenue. So, I mean, how much money are you willing to invest in this method? And how patient are you to wait for sales? If you can't answer those two questions, you're not ready.
No, and that's a really good shout out, to be honest, because so often people think they see their competitors doing influencer marketing, and then they think, well, actually, why can't we should be doing this? But they don't know really quite what to allocate. And the reason I say that is because sort of at the end of Q4, it's often a time when budgets are set for the following year. And you and I have had this discussion about the importance of influencer marketing being a line on the budget in itself, as opposed to just being swallowed up by all things marketing. Because I think it's when done well. I often talk, well, there's stats out there that talk about 11 times greater ROI than any other form of media. And I always say in response to that, as I say, when done well, it can be a fantastic marketing strategy in itself. So let's talk a bit about, Zach, a couple of campaigns that you've worked on where gifting has worked really, really well. And if you've got any sort of feedback on their results, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, I can share my screen if you want. I have one here sitting here. Or I could just walk through it verbally.
You can share the screen, actually, because this is a video as well. So, I mean, obviously, if just for the benefit of listeners,
Sure.
you're just going to have to talk through it.
Yeah, there we go. So for listeners, you guys can't see it. So one brand that came to mind, you did mention before this call, hey, do you have any case studies you could bring? So I got one ready. Derma E. So if you haven't heard of Derma E, they're a natural skincare brand. They're all over the place. They've done multiple campaigns with Apex Drop. And you can see, if you're not able to see, there's pictures here of people holding up the product. Derma had been one of the early adopters of micro-influencer marketing. They hired Apex to help them produce diverse social content. They wanted diversity. They were really into that. That was years ago. That's still a big deal, but they were really into that, getting diversity in their customers. And they wanted to tap into our private network. We activated 1,620 influencers out of our network to help Derma with their brand. And we separated that group into 19 different individual drops, is what we're calling those. So a drop is like a campaign. And through those campaigns, we produced 2,208 sponsored posts on Instagram. So their focus was Instagram. It consisted of mostly static imagery, but there was some video and some reels. They had 25 million total followers on those accounts. If you add them all up, doesn't mean that they reached 25 million, but that is the number of followers on those accounts. They did measure 31 million impressions on those posts. And their engagement rate was really good, 4.4%.
Amazing.
Which the industry average is dropping. So, I mean, 4.4% is not for everybody. It might not even be realistic overall for some brands today, even really good brands on Instagram specifically. But 4.4%, what that means is they're about 4 or 5 times the industry average at that point, which we can still make that claim. We're around 5 times the industry averages, but it's lower than it used to be. 1.1 million post engagements were made on those. What that means is likes and comments. So they got 1.1 million likes and comments. That's a significant numbers, but what it really converted into was larger conversion rate in sales ultimately for this brand. So they stuck with us for several years. They've actually since moved on from Apex. So they've graduated. This company got to a point where they said, we have so many influencers, we're just going to use this network, this advocacy system. They got bought out by a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Hats off to Derma, nice work. So being bought out by this multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company, fantastic news. We were sad to see them go, but we're also really excited to say they built a network of thousands of micro-influencers, and now they use that as their own advocacy network. They don't really need us anymore. I wish they did, but they don't. And so, over the course of a couple of years with Apex, you could build up your advocacy network to be so strong, and maybe you get bought by a multi-billion-dollar company and you don't need us anymore. That can happen.
Yeah. Well, what was really interesting here is that you talked about scale. I mean, look, 1,620 influencers, that's no insignificant amount of influencers for a campaign. I mean, from my own experience, I don't think I've been involved in a campaign as big as that many influencers.
But nobody that I know of has ever done campaigns the sizes that we do.
Yeah.
But we don't really know. Nobody shares their data, but I mean, I don't know anybody who has a system built this way. So to work with thousands at a time.
Yeah. Well, look, again, as well, Zach, we're not guaranteeing that everybody, when it's coming to gifting, there's always going to be. Do we know roughly as a percentage of the people that you reach out to and receive a gift? So if you were to reach out to 1,000, for example, how many would respond?
That's a great question. And so we did a case study with Guardian Technologies. They did this humidifier, and they had a 96% participation rate, which is on the high end. Some brands see lower. It can go down as low as 70%. We've seen that around the bottom is 70%. The high is usually around 95%. 70% would mean that the product wasn't well received. There might have been some kind of disconnect. We don't point at the network and go, why don't you post? We go, well, what could we do to make this product more enticing? Because at the end of the day, if you have a cool product, people get interested. And it just so happens that Guardian Tech had a great product. They got about 1,775, not about, they got 1,775 new followers on their account, 99% increase in their site traffic while they were running with us, 213% increase in revenue. That is astronomically high. So, take that with a grain of salt. And 7.59% increase in their conversion rates on their website, 108,000 total engagements. So this comes from Google Analytics from March 2020 to 2021. So keep in mind, this is a little bit older study that these numbers came from. So some of these might be, well, I guess there's no engagement rates, but things have changed. It's been a year, so things have changed.
But nevertheless impressive. And it just shows you that in order to move the needle, you need to reach out to more people. But even then, look at 96%, and that is quite phenomenal. And I think, again, from your experience working with professional agencies like yourself, you know what to put in the subject line. You know what type of thing is going to entice them. You know what type of messaging works. I mean, I know that a number of brands that say to me, "Oh, we've tried to reach out to influencers, but they don't respond. They don't react." And what happens is they then get a bad experience in some shape or form. So they then don't decide to run an influencer campaign. Yet, actually, if they had worked with experts that know and understand this space intimately, have already got a recognized community of people, the results, as you've clearly showed, it could be quite illuminating, can't they?
Yeah, I think it's, everybody's a skeptic until it works. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time for these effects. So I hate to say, don't get in unless you're patient. But the truth is, with micros, you really have to have patience. These companies I showed you clearly had patience. They were willing to invest in a multi-touch attribution model, which is that they are okay with investing in awareness. If you don't have the money or the time to invest in awareness, don't waste your time with gifting. Now, if you're a pizza shop and you're new in town and you want to get people to try your pizza, giving it away is the best way to build a customer base. So just ask yourself, how much are you willing to give? And would you be willing to give, maybe all of your inventory to build a customer base? Like, you have to really, it takes some soul searching here. Is it worth it? Really comes down to your situation. We currently have we want to help the underdog. I want to make this really clear. We work with big companies, but like, one of my passions is to help people come up. I enjoy watching the line move like this, not like this. I like seeing growth. I love compound growth. It's super fun. As a marketer, that's been my obsession my whole life. So we built a system that allowed for smaller companies to afford what we do. So we have a system that is currently on special till the end of the year. It's $5,000 a month. And what that'll get you is 200 influencers that'll work with you over the course of 6 months. So you do have to pay $5,000 a month for 6 months. That's a $30,000 investment. This is why it's good news for a smaller company. We have a money back guarantee on it. So I've never heard this ever, but we actually guarantee growth from our program, because we've done this over 1,000 times. We know what to expect. If our content doesn't beat your content, that would be an insane thing to happen, but we'd have to give you our money back. So if you paid us $30,000 and we couldn't help you grow. So if you're interested in doing something, if $5,000 a month isn't astronomical, now that's on sale. But we wanted to make a program that allowed a company that maybe around 3 million and above on revenue, that you probably need to be at least around 3 million and above to make sense of that kind of investment. But if you have at least 5,000 a month and you have other things you're investing in, like, I don't want this to be your only thing. If this is your only thing, this is not your thing, because this is top of funnel. But if you're investing in the bottom, if you have some paid search, you're doing well there, you have some good conversions, your website's performing well, you're doing something that's having an effect in a market, 5,000 a month is kind of not much at all to worry about. But for some companies, that's all their money. So if it's all your money, not a fit. If it's a small portion of your budget, or maybe less than half at least, I would say then you should be fine. So there's and I don't want to just pitch my program. That's not really my intention here. It's just that I know it's scary to invest that kind of money, and I really don't want to help people get into a bad situation where they're just dumping all their money into something that's not going to work. There are ways to make money now by paying for traffic, and some people literally have no choice. So if that's you, pay Google, pay Facebook, hire a really good company to do paid ads. And when you're ready to invest in the top of the funnel, come see Apex.
Yeah. No, well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today. And I love your passion for your product and the services and how you've grown as a business. Now you're like 40 people now, aren't you, Zane?
Yeah, it's growing pretty fast. 40
Yeah.
people.
No, that's great. That's great. And so what's the website link or your personal URL? How can people find you?
Yeah, apexdrop.com. It's one word. And it's Zach at apexdrop.com, ZAK, just a K, too cool for C's. But yeah, that's my email.
Great.
You can hit me directly. I do respond the same day. I'm crazy like that. I own the company, but I also love to get involved with customers. If I'm too busy, I'll probably pass you to my VP. But man, if I can meet with you, I'd love to.
Great stuff. All right, Zach, thank you so much for joining us on the Influence Global podcast.
Thank you so much.